Hey, I'm Philippe Karsenty, head and founder of Media Ratings, the first ever media ratings agency in the world.
And what's the purpose of media ratings?
The purpose of Media Ratings originally was to analyze and monitor the French media, but we've been focused during the last 3 years on the al-Dura story, which has become the most important lie, media fraud in the world.
What's the significance of the al-Durah affair? Do you think to the public, to the viewers who are watching the news?
Well, the al-Dura story is the biggest lie ever done, and it's a starting point of the jihadist war against the West in 2000, and it's just a year before 9/11. It started the war in Israel of the Arabs against Israel. Bin Laden used it for his video clips. I mean, all the Muslim countries used it in order to inflame the minds against Israel, the Jews, the Western world, America. So I would say it's Muhammad al-Dura is the most important icon of the Muslim world now.
And also, would you say it's a significant icon to the general public?
Well, they succeeded in transferring this icon to the general public in order to demonize Israel. The general public has been buying this story, and everybody believes in the al-Dura fraud. And I would say it's very dangerous because it has indoctrinated the Western world. Even the most respectable people have been indoctrinated by this image, and now we need to go back into their minds and make them understand that they've been brainwashed. Brainwashing is very important now, and I guess when we'll succeed in having them understand that they've been brainwashed, then they'll look differently at the news when they're coming from Israel, from the Middle East, or from any other country from this region.
What would you say? What is the brainwashing? Was the brainwashing that the Palestinians are fabricating events? Is that news?
Well, it became news for them. I mean, they created news with those lies, and now, I mean, it's all the lies that came after were easily taken by the public because their brain was already ready to get. I mean, they were believing that Israel was killing children for no reason for, and so now any atrocity that they will put on Israel's account will be taken seriously. So I guess when we'll erase the mother of all the lies, or the father of all the lies, then we'll be able to come back and then to have people understand that they've been lied.
Who would you say is responsible for the creation of the lie of the assassination of Muhammad al-Dura?
Well, first is the Arab cameraman Talal Abu Ghafma who made the fraud. Second is the French journalist Charles Enderlin who put his voice over the news report. Third, I would tell you, it's the French TV, the French state-owned TV, France 2, who broadcast it and who offered it to all over the world to all the TV networks. And then, ultimately, I would say it's the French government and the French General Society which is responsible, because when we came and we brought the evidence that it was a fraud, all of them fought against me and tried to make me ridiculous in order to not to admit that they were broadcasting a fraud. So it's I would say now France, generally speaking, is responsible for this fraud, and the problem is that even American media outlets have not been helpful in revealing the truth.
How do you mean?
Well, I've been to lots of American media networks, and I asked them, "Would you like revealing the truth on this case?" And none of them was interested.
For example, can you name any of the networks who?
Well, I mean, I've seen Fox News. Fox News, I offered them to do something on this. I'm not sure they were really interested, from what I understand. We're not interested. I mean, they're more journalists than interested by the truth, I guess. So.
Well, what would they be afraid of in demonstrating the case of France 2?
Oh, that they're serving fake news also on their network every night, every week, every month. And if you look closely to their news report, you may discover that the news that they're serving you is not so accurate.
That they may be guilty of also what France...
Broadcasting fraud also. I mean, they're using the same Arab stringers than France 2 is using. They're using the same stringers that all the networks are using when it comes to Gaza or to Iraq or whatever, any Jordan or whatever, any Arabic country. So those stringers, they are working under political agenda, and our networks, Western networks, can't send their people to check the facts. And the last question would be, are they really interested in checking the facts? Well, I'd like to see that.
Does this case reveal that there may be an agenda on the part of the journalists?
Yeah, the agenda is done by the stringers and by the political people in those countries, in Gaza and Cisjordania and wherever you want. They are obeying to their political leaders. And the problem with the Western world is that their media are not trying to challenge them. They're okay, they're selling them fake stories, and they're putting them online or on TV because it sells. I mean, it's very attract. I mean, you're attracted by the news when you see those kind of image.
Yeah.
It sells a lot of copies.
But by what you're saying, the cameraman the stringer may have been responsible for knowingly putting something false, but that the news editors or producers themselves are innocent because they don't know what they're getting, or the truth of what they're getting. But wasn't Enderlin really complicit?
Well, let's give him the benefit of the doubt, but I guess he's at least, even if at the beginning he was not aware that it was a fraud, when we came with all the evidence, then after it was obvious. So the fact that he didn't want to admit the fraud, that he has been duped, and that he covered it up, makes him more responsible than anyone, because he's a very high figure in the world media journalism.
And do you think the France 2 was trying to protect him just because it would look bad for him as their employee, or do you think they had a larger agenda to protect?
Well, France 2, first, they don't want to admit that media are making any mistake. The larger agenda was the agenda of Jacques Chirac. I mean, Jacques Chirac was the worst anti-Zionist leader in the world, I would say, in the Western world at least, since the creation of the State of Israel. I mean, no other leader in the world was worse than Jacques Chirac. Try to remember, Jacques Chirac in 1975 gave nuclear plants to Saddam Hussein. What was it for? Just to produce electricity? I don't believe this. It was really to produce a nuclear bomb. And when he came back to power in 1986, again he caved in front of the Arabs. And when he came back in 1995, he was the one who was insulting Israel. He was the one who was providing weapons to Yasser Arafat, providing weapons to all the Arabic terrorists. So I would tell you, Jacques Chirac had his own agenda, and it fits with the ideology of those journalists.
But do you think the journalists would be trying to help the government in their larger imperialist hegemony quest to maintain strength in the Middle East? Do you think it's a political move that way?
Well, I wouldn't say it's like there is no conspiracy. There is no. It's very easy, It's very easy. It's the way it is. I mean, the way it is like France, especially under Chirac, was really trying to destroy the state of Israel. And all the people who have been working with Chirac and who are telling you the opposite are people who are not telling you the truth. I mean, never forget. I mean, Chirac was, I would say, maybe one of the most corrupted leaders in the world. He received money from the Arabs, from the Arab leaders. I mean, do you know where does Chirac live now in France?
Where?
When he left the Élysée, where does he live now?
Where?
In an apartment given to him by Rafik Hariri, the former prime minister of Lebanon, who was killed by Syrians. I mean, it's unbelievable. In any country in the world, would you accept that George Bush at the end of his presidency will be hosted by a house by any Arabic leader that would be like those kind of Rafik Hariri, who's been really involved in very trouble and strange affairs? No, I mean, it doesn't make sense. So what we have in France is a completely corrupted state of mind, and Chirac was really the worst guy.
Do you think that the journalists or the press in general have a leftist attitude out of sympathy for the Muslims? Let's say the Muslims living in France now?
It's not important. I mean, the Muslims living in France have no importance now, up to now. I mean, have you ever seen a Muslim journalist in France? Have you ever seen a Muslim leader? There's no. I mean, you can see Muslim journalists, but they're not high profile. I mean, the high profile ones are the leftist Jewish guys. You know, the same guys as you have in the New York Times or in the LA Times. We have the same kind of guy, self-hating Jews, pretending that they're working for the good of mankind, but trying to have the people following their complete lunatic ideas.
Not Gentiles?
Gentile. You know what? Gentiles, they're using the word of those Jews, of those lefty Jews, to say, look, we're not saying even what they're saying, our Jewish friends are saying. Our Jewish friends are saying much worse than we're saying about Israel. So don't call us anti-Semites. We're just revealing the truth.
Is there a risk to demonizing Israel? You think, is there a social risk to demonizing just Israel as a country?
Risk? No.
Is there a risk to the West?
Oh yeah, of course. I mean, because Israel represents the West, and I'm telling you that if by demonizing Israel, you're demonizing your own country. And I mean, those guys who are pretending that they're defending the gays and the whatever they want in the West, if their friends, their Muslim friends, extremist friends win, I'm going to tell you, they're going to have big problems to have their gay and whatever activities. And it's really, I mean, they should be very happy to live in our societies and not being killed and hanged like it is in Iran or Saudi Arabia if you discover a gay attitude or gay whatever. So I mean, it's very strange because those people are really working for societies where they couldn't even have a decent life.
But what's the risk to people in France or America or England in allowing a greater immigration or creating more accommodation to Islamic communities within the West? What's the or Muslims in the government or Muslims in the?
But it's not the problem is not with having Muslims somewhere. The problem is having a Muslim agenda. I mean, I have my first assistant is a Muslim, and I have no problem. We're working perfectly together. I mean, it's very important. The problem is not with the Muslim. The problem is the Muslim agenda, and the Muslim agenda is less defended by the Muslim than by the extreme leftist Jews like Enderlin or others. I mean, those guys are really defending ugly agendas, as the one you have in America. I mean, look at some of your media. It's horrible.
What do you mean by Muslim agenda? What is such a thing?
It's a Dini agenda, you know, the Dini agenda, obeying to the Muslim world, being nice to the Muslim world, admitting the so-called Israeli-Palestinian conflict. There is no Israeli-Palestinian conflict. There is a war of the Arabs and the Muslims against Israel, and they're trying to destroy the state. And they're always pretending, well, we want a little piece of land, but they don't care about the land. What they care is the destruction of the state of Israel and the destruction of the West. And if we're not counter-fighting, we're going to die.
What do you mean the destruction of the West?
The Western societies, they want to destroy our societies. They want to destroy the way we're living. I mean, the way we're enjoying our lives. I mean, do you ever take a plane? Do you ever take a plane? When you take a plane, how was it like 20 years ago? We used to take a plane like it was so nice, you know. You used to take a plane. Now it's impossible. You cannot even take your perfume with you. It's impossible. Taking a plane is becoming a nightmare, and they're putting our societies under their way. They're pushing us in a way we don't want to live like this. I mean, we are open societies and we are closing our society. They're complaining, our extreme leftists, I'm fed up with them because they're complaining about the checkpoints in Israel. But we have checkpoints everywhere here because of them. If you want to take a plane, it's worse than the checkpoints. It's much more humiliating. I mean, you're anyone and you have to take off your shoes, you have to check, and then the guy is coming and asking you questions. I mean, come on. We are decent people, and we are forced to live like indecent men because of those guys.
But do you think that this is coordinated somewhere?
No, there is no coordination. It's not just that we are caving in. Every part of our societies are caving in more and more and more, and it's unbearable.